Welcome everyone to the Kendall Report. It is Tuesday night and I'm competing with Joe Biden tonight while he's doing the State of the Union. I'd rather get it, do anything but watch that thing. I'll probably try to at least watch some of it as much as I can stomach, but it's probably is interesting. So I'm glad to see a lot of you aren't watching it as well. So yeah, let's get into a little bit. The title of this video I did tonight is Markets Misinterpret Powell. And I think it's interesting what we continue to see. Also saw a comment right before I went live is, are we going to correct? And eventually, yes, there's a lot of upside still going around in the markets. And right now, really, we're just trading in sideways range. We went 42.08 down to actually printed under 4,100 early this morning, right back to, into the range again. We did a S2, R2 range yesterday. I talked about maybe a little more volatility, thought we could print up to R2, but the way we got there was interesting, I think. Just a few things. Powell said absolutely nothing that he hasn't said before. he just kind of reiterated this. But here's one of the things that I think that folks were keying off of that probably caused the volatility and ultimately catching a bid in the markets. And when Powell says they're going to pay attention to the data, they're going to react to the data. I keep telling you, and I hear folks telling me that there are bullish people out there, but in the real world, everybody believes there will be a recession. The U.S. economy is going to slow down substantially, and that's the data that the markets think they're going to see. And this, at least from a sentiment viewpoint, this is how traders and people are responding. Is initially you get this big rally and they said, whoa, wait a minute. Then the market sold off and then just went straight up, pretty much bid into the close, going out near the highs of the day. S&P finished up 1.29, NASDAQ up 1.90, and the Russell lagging again at 0.76. And from my viewpoint, folks, is we're really just seeing a trading range. You're going to see in a database tonight. Database is reacting, finally starting to get a little rotation. I'll go through all the details here in just a few minutes. But for the most part, the markets heard we're going to pay attention to the data, and they heard we're going to pivot. We're going to go back to the old game. And I will keep saying it over and over and over that that's not what's going to happen. The market, Powell and the boys and girls are going to keep everything going forward. Higher rates. I still believe they'll have the Fed funds and the front end of the yield curve into 5%. I kind of teased you last night that I would do a yield curve. I'm going to wait till tomorrow night, because there was some movement in the yield curve today, because the 530 spreads moved quite a bit actually, and I was surprised at that. We actually inverted again, literally in one session. So it was a big deal. But I want to see how that stabilizes, what we get out of tomorrow. And there's no news of any sort coming out. I glanced over it. We do have some earnings, and that's still happening, but we're not really seeing any big economic news. So I can't imagine the markets are going to have a reaction to what Joe Biden's saying, but maybe it's different. We're down 6.25 right now, so I believe he's speaking right now. Couple other things. I think that I was looking at Microsoft cut a big bid. GPT going into Bing. I don't know about you folks, but I don't think I've ever used Bing by accident, that Microsoft served it up when I did something and they brought it up. If they can get people using Bing, man, they're good. I'm telling you. I know that Google is launching a competitor to Chat GPT, and there's a lot of stuff going on. The AI sector is really exploding right now. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and it's almost very difficult to keep up with the amount of things that are going on out there. But that'll be for another time. So we did, I'll go through all the stuff. We should be able to get through here fairly quick tonight, because we're really looking at this week ahead that, there's not really anything material coming out at all from an economic standpoint. Maybe some of these earnings will do something, and we'll just have to wait and see from that standpoint. Let's go ahead and just get right through this thing tonight, get through the database, get into the technicals. I think they're starting to look a little interesting. Maybe a correction is on the way, but I don't see anything big at the moment. So let's go ahead and get into the database and move beyond here. All right, so here we are. We're at 74.51 bullish. We were at over 80% last night. So we actually got 1,049 sell signals for tomorrow's opening, and only 228 buys. So we're finally seeing maybe some rotation starting. And now this isn't necessarily super bearish that we're getting this, but it does suggest that the markets are likely to go into, on a short-term database, a rotation. And that just means that some of the stocks that have been in for a while are going to be just kind of rotating, meaning that the symbols that came on early in the cycle are going to sell out, and then the back end, or the ones that come in the last couple of weeks, will kind of lead the way, and that's probably going to set this more of a sideways formation. You'll see when I go through the algos tonight what that means from that standpoint. But there's not much here, so I think as long as we stay at this point, 68%, we're at 74, 68% is a key number, and then we're looking at potential for going down to around 62%. We should stay in this type of cycle above 62. 58 is an extreme, but we should stay in the 60 handle from the bullish percent on the short-term basis. So just looking at some of these other numbers that are on the screen that you folks are seeing, I know it's a little smaller, but the bottom line is that what we're seeing here is that we have finally got the current duration is at 24 of 39. This number usually gets up into the 60, 70% level. It's currently duration percent fulfilled is 0.61%. And like I said, it usually gets into 60 to 70, maybe 72 when things are really strong. We'll see how that goes. Right now, we're same scenario here. We're at 60% of the profits in those symbols, and there's quite a few of them that are long, because right now there's still, as of tomorrow, there's still 11,800 symbols. So like I said, we get roughly a net 800 coming off those numbers tomorrow. So we're finally seeing some rotation. I don't think it's super negative. I think the overall trends that are underlying right now are still slightly biased to the upside. So let's go ahead and get into the technicals, and like I said, we should be able to get through tonight pretty quickly. All right, let's start off with the hourly chart here. And this is what I was talking about. And we see these a lot, and we've already contracted. It looks like that we should start to come back down into some of these support levels here. There's a potential for us to come down probably into the 21 period moving average right now at between 39 and 40. We're currently at 70, and this is likely to happen probably overnight. The key support initially will be the 10 period moving average at 58. If we break 58, then we should trade back into 45 to 42 on the downside. So we're not in any kind of runaway market as far as I can see on the hourly chart. And let's go over to the daily just so we can get a look at that. And the daily patterns are actually very bullish. I got this angle of attack right now. We're at 0.33 on PPM1. But what it does look like, it looks like we're about very close in the next day or so to see that momentum start to fall out of the 10 period moving average. So the number is going to be to watch. 41.22 is the 10. And if we go back to yesterday, that number was 41.08. We did print down, like I said, 40.98. We printed through that one handle, and if we look at what the market grid yesterday, 40.94 was S2. So we printed just almost to that, and then we got a reversal. R2 yesterday was 67. We saw actually our XR, I'm trying to get these numbers right. High was 41.88, and that actually printed out better with at RTX than the two. I said R2, S2, R2. This was a little higher print, but the bottom line is it looks like we've got probably one more day in this pattern, and we should challenge that 10-period moving average, and it's going up right now at roughly 14 handles per day. So it's going to be this 41.36, 41.40. That's going to be pretty decent. That could be tested sometime tomorrow on Wednesday. That looks like we could see a test coming into there. Meanwhile, all of the other factors down below, it actually looks like this is pretty amazing. It took us forever to get through the 200. Now it looks like the 200 is attempting to actually turn up, which means there's a significant trend starting to unfold here. And I know there's still, I don't care what you folks tell me, there's still a lot of negative people out there. So I'm just continuing to watch what's going on, and these trends look like they're still intact. We got a great angle of attack. I'm going to go over to TradeStation here, and let's just bring up what we're looking at for the E-minis for tomorrow and for overnight. So right now, looking at S1 60, 4160, S2 44. So I've just talked about that 44 a couple of times. We could see R1 S2, which would be 4190, 4144 would be expected range for today. And like I said, we should see this thing start to rotate a little bit more. I mentioned the VIX, and we're still at 1866. There is a possibility if we do get one more surge, the VIX could print as low as, I would say, into the 16 handle. I know that just seems ridiculous from what we've seen for so long, but I'll cover that. I'll watch it really close. We'll cover that as we go through the rest of the week. So we go to the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, same pattern as far as the algos go. Looks like another day, maybe as many as two, where we'll hold this 10-period moving average, 11,741. I know it seemed ridiculous, some of the numbers was talking about last night. We look at 12,824 was RXT, and we came right up into it. And this pattern that's unfolding here, let me spread this out just a little bit so you can see it just a bit better. But this pattern that's unfolding continues to be bullish. I normally don't talk a lot about the webs that are on here, but the webs are suggesting we're in an upward slope rope, and you can see how the market grid is pointing up. And like I said, we've got at least two days where this angle of attack is going to maintain. So use the critical area to watch is going to be that 10 SMA, and that should be your support line. You probably still have this upward bias, like I said, probably Wednesday into Thursday when we get the claims numbers. That's pretty much all we're going to get is the claims and the continuing claims on Thursday. Everything else that's coming out is pretty benign. So expect that pattern to continue there. So next we'll take a look at the Russell futures. They are weakening, and we've seen this, you folks who watch this channel, that forever and ever, the Russell seems to be one step ahead. It looks like it's ready to weaken and a little quicker than the other indexes. So, and it has been the laggard. Like I said, it was only up 0.76, NASDAQ up 1.9, and S&P up 1.29. So it's the laggard here. So it's actually could be the leader on the downside and potentially moving back to 1850 on this if we can break through that SMA 10 at 1849. And this is the Russell futures. So this is the actual accurate value of that 10 right now at 1955. So look at that. We look at the market grid. S3 is 1950. S2 is 1960. And so same kind of scenario, I think the possibility of an S2, R1 across the board on all these indexes is very possible. We'll see some softening. And if you recall yesterday, I mentioned that when Powell talks, the market likes to go up. I really think this continuing misinterpretation, I believe Powell's telling us exactly what he's going to do. And I will find an opportunity to go a little bit more on a rant on some of these I'll call it backstage things that are going on that folks aren't really focusing in on. I just continue to see, stories where, the Fed, last week, delivered a death blow to the economy. And meanwhile, jolts, and we get 450,000 jobs. And yes, you guys already told me it's seasonally adjusted. I've went on rants about seasonally adjusted numbers. Yes, it is. But I keep arguing all the time is that what matters when these reports come out is the market's reaction at that moment. Ultimately, as we go through and we get revisions, reality comes back in. But that might not be for 1 day, 2 days, sometimes weeks before. I always joke that the market can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So whatever they're focused on, they're going to continue to focus on, and that will drive sentiment. And we now have, a lot of algos that are driving off news stories here. So just know that that's going to be a continuing story here as we go forward. So the 10-year continued to go up as we cover interest rates here. And as I showed you yesterday, the algos continue to suggest that the PPM1 is accelerating here, and we're getting into a pretty robust trend. This is a daily. We printed up to 367 and a half on the close, and I talked about 372 as high as 378. That's picked up off of the weekly charts. So this trend, PPM1, PPM2, all of the algos are suggesting we're going to see a continuing level of remaining above these first and second derivatives. And it doesn't look like, and listen, beyond 2 or 3 days looking forward on these algos, I have them forwarded out. If I showed you the settings, I know a lot of you have these. If you look at the settings here, the inputs, so this is interesting because somebody asked me about this, and this is exactly what I thought was happening. If I change this to 150, that's the default. You'll see it'll change just a little bit. So I may have had some of those set on 50. There's a slight variance. So I'm glad I caught that because I had some emails come in today. So if that was you, I answered somebody back today that said, hey, I might have had that set on 50 because when I go to these longer term charts, you have to change that setting. So anyway, it looks to me that all this stuff, regardless of 50 or 150, you still have this upward bias going on the interest rates. I'm going to flash over just for a second because I said I'll show you the yield curve. You'll see this far right-hand chart over here. This thing just plummeted. We actually went to a negative 13 basis points. It was just literally, if we go 1 day back, it was just above zero, and it just plummeted down. So we're seeing a little flattening coming back into the curve again. And so if that continues, that's that inversion. And like I said, for me, these 530s are everything that counts. The 530s and the 1030s is very, very significant. All right, next we'll cover the crude oil, and I see some questions here about some stuff. I promised last night, I didn't promise, I said my plan was to do a Wavetech presentation for an hour today. I got my time got hijacked from the standpoint. I had something unexpected come up. I couldn't do it today, but I am almost done with also getting the presentation ready. So I'm going to scoot it in somewhere. Not sure where, but it's going to happen. And then also I will cover some of these questions that are coming up and on the PPMs. I want to stay focused on getting through the normal. And maybe what I need to do is just also do a live show and just take questions on PPMs and all the indicator suite. That's actually a really good idea. So Trader SLA, thanks for asking those questions. I'm not going to be able to answer them at the moment, but I think that would be a really good plan, just to light the screens up and take questions. So if you would, post when a good time, if you're available, US market hours, all that kind of stuff. Thanks again for asking that question, though. So let's take a look at crude oil here. And crude had a pretty decent day. We're looking, actually the strongest sector yesterday was energy. And I'm sure if you turned on the State of the Union right now, you probably have Biden pounding on his chest because oil, gas prices came down from 5 and change down to 340. He's a hero now, even though they were 220 when he came in the office. But the point is what we're this energy sector really starting to get close to, I think, a bottoming pattern. And really what we've been, I'm just going to draw in something real quick because it'll take me just a second to do this. And this will show you a little bit. This is really, in real terms, this is what's been going on with crude oil here, just getting the lows. We're just locked in this box formation, and we can't seem to break out of it. And it's literally just the sideways pattern. This is a very corrective pattern that I just drew in. And all this is telling us that we're locked in a range, and maybe we're going to stay move up toward the upper end of the box. The PPM1 is suggesting that. PPM2 is kind of flattening out, but it's immaterial. It's actually positive by 0.16, and the PPM1 is negative. So what it's suggesting is that it's going to flatten out. And what happens, I just want to draw this in just real quick, is it just says that this is the 10 period. It's the 10 period moving average is going to start to go up here. Let me get the right drawing tool. It looks like it wants to start to come up. All of these averages are kind of get crossing in here, and this should be the base for support in this area. I know it's just kind of scribble, but you get the concept. But watch these simple averages that are in this pattern. They're 70. If you notice, they're almost all at the same value. Let me unfreeze this screen here so I can bring this up. Yeah, if you look at the values here, you're looking at PPM1 77.17, 78.41, 77.48. So they're virtually all the same, and it's not going to take much movement above this level to maintain, to start to see the PPMs turn up and start to maybe formulate some sort of trend to the upside. So next we'll cover the gold market. Gold is hovering right above its 40-period moving average. As I mentioned last night, I think it's going to stay above here. We've got some downward pressure. PPM1 is down at 0.28. So that's going to be your major resistance. It's down. So we're looking at $6 per day. So it's going to be down around 1908, then 1900 even, and we probably would expect somewhere around in the 90 handle for it to hit resistance. And maybe we should get sandwiched between the 40 and the 40 and the 10 period moving averages, which would suggest the range of 71 to probably 1908. So we'll probably get in there, and it looks like it's going to take a few days maybe to stabilize, and it's possible. We'll see if the algos adjust a little bit. If we do hold those numbers, we should start to see it start to set up a pattern to go higher. Just look at the weekly. You also have a major weekly moving average there at 1865. So probabilities right now, PPM1 is at 0.42. There's only about a 30% probability for the markets to get below that level at the moment. I'm just trying to see if I can find a chart really quick, because this is probably a good time to just bring this up, and this will also help. I'm just trying to find some. Bear with me just 1 second, folks. Yeah, so I'll bring this up. This chart right here, see if I can get it to float here. Yeah, so this chart here is the probability map for the PPMs, and I've shared this in our live room, and maybe I'll put this out on Twitter or something. But this pattern that we're seeing right here, where we're starting to turn up, we're probably in right here where we got to this terminal value where my cursor is on the chart here, and now we're starting to roll over, and that's what you're seeing here. So this is a pretty typical pattern. We're not in one. We were in one of these extended patterns over here, because the value got up to about 1.4, and you can see the scale in red here. It's just above 1.4 is an extended PPM pattern. So this is exactly what happened here. This really gives you a really good understanding of how these angles work and when they're likely to start to be penetrated. So right now, as I mentioned, this weekly here, we're still at a 0.42, and if I look at a 0.42 right now, we're really looking at about 40 to 30% probability for the market to trade below that value, which was 1885. So I just thought I'd take a minute to show that, and that sort of answers the question that Trader SLA was asking just a little bit ago. So hopefully that was helpful. Finally, we'll cover the Bitcoin. We continue to see a bid. It's staying correlated pretty well with the market. Let me flip this over to a daily chart here just for a second, so we can go through that, and I'll expand the scale. But we're trading. What's happening is PPMs are rolling through the pattern. Key support now is coming in on the daily, is coming in at 22,000 at the moment. We're still 23,405. And let me just see what that slope is right now. It's about, we'll call it it's about 270 per day, that angle, but it looks like PPM2 is starting to fade off a little bit. So it's going to flatten out. I would watch that SMA value. That's going to be your support. And typically, just like what we were looking at a minute ago in the gold, we're probably going to get sandwiched between the 10 and 21, and that would be whatever those values are at time. Right now it's 22,000, 23,379. We're trading right in that range. We'll probably come back into board that SMA on the 21. That should get us where we're going, and the algos are suggesting that we're going to see some upward momentum bleed off. So we may end up penetrating and end up down over here at the 20,780, and this 40 is coming up. So those are probably going to meet. I think when we get a crossover of the 200 and the 40, so this is the 200 day, when the 40 crosses up over the 200, wherever the value is there, is probably going to be a pretty solid potential bottom there. And I would watch these algos, those people that you have the indicators, and watch that really closely, because there's a good chance as we go out several days that we'll start to see this turn up. Okay, folks, that's going to do it for tonight. I appreciate everybody watching here and hanging out with me instead of Joe Biden. So wasn't a hard choice, hopefully. Anyway, folks, I appreciate it. I'm just looking at a couple comments here. Yeah, yeah, we got 116 thumbs up. So click that like button, and we'll go tomorrow. Like I said, two things are going to happen. I think it was a great idea. Just kind of came out of the question. Trader SLA, appreciate it again. We need to just light up the screen and take a couple of these indicators, a key setups that I use, some of the things we do in the live room, and just do a quick, quick overview there. And then I am going to get the Wavetech stuff out because there's some really significant things going on, especially, folks, we get into a negative rotation, these short-term stuff. If I showed you the trade on Netflix that was done by Wavetech, it was insane. That's up like 85 or 90%. And this goes back, back several months ago on a weekly where it bought it. It was just almost a perfect buy off the bottom. So anyway, thank you again. Hit the like button before you go, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you same time tomorrow night. And we'll talk a little more yield curve tomorrow. I'm hoping to see how things happen after what we saw today with the flattening. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Hit the like button before you leave. See you tomorrow night.